Rivera, McCutchen, 31 Faneuil Place. I want to start off just by saying that I'm the daughter of a New York City transit officer, a cousin of a police officer, and certainly I don't think that all police officers, all people who are in law enforcement are bad, right? So this is not about individual people, but what we're talking about are structures and systems that have permeated and have festered over generations. And so what we're talking about as a community, what folks are coming up and talking about today, is around understanding how to address systems that are inherently flawed, that continue generation after generation, and really coming up with ways to counteract what we know is going to be baked into the system. So there are a couple of threads that I'm going to try to tie together that some of the speakers mentioned tonight that I think are really powerful. One has to do with all of the powerful testimony around the development in downtown New Rochelle. It reminds me a lot of the ways that people talk about the beautiful diversity of New Rochelle, but that takes work. And it's often the work that is hard, that is introspective, that requires us to look at and talk about some of the really ugly things that exist within our communities, and looking at police reform and inequities and the ways that communities of color and marginalized communities are often sidelined unless we get trotted out for diversity, is one of the things that we need to pay attention to. And so it's important for us to think about what are the ways that the system is operating to perpetuate the inequities and the oppression, because that's the way the system was designed. And how do we ensure that we enact, build, create systems that counterbalance that tendency for systems to constantly go back to the norm, which is to be oppressive, which is to ignore historically marginalized communities, or worse, to victimize those communities. And so we need to think about how do we create systems within our structures. You all as an elected body can do that to ensure that we can counteract what is going to be the way that systems operate, so that we can ensure that our community is holding the police and law enforcement accountable to us, to all of us, not just some of us in this community. There is a lot of power in law enforcement, and it's really critical that we check that power by creating systems. Thank you.
Thank you.